Today's video might be a bit controversial for some of you because, well, heroes are supposed to be the ones we root for, the ones fighting for justice, freedom, and a better world. But what if I told you the so-called villains actually make way more sense? Today we'll be explaining why some villains are more relatable than heroes. But these aren't just villains, they're characters who understood reality better than the heroes ever did. So let's break down why some of anime's biggest villains might actually be the most relatable characters of all. Number 1. Attack on Titan, Eren Yeager. Eren Yeager was supposed to be the hero, the kid trapped in a cage dreaming of freedom, the one who swore to wipe out the Titans and protect humanity. And for years, that's exactly what he fought for. But then reality drop-kicked him in the face. The real enemy wasn't the Titans, it was the world. And suddenly, being the hero? Yeah, that didn't make sense anymore. At first, Eren is easy to root for. His life is built on one defining trauma, watching his mother get chomped in half while he just stood there helpless. That kind of thing tends to stick with you. So when he vows to kill every last Titan, it doesn't just feel justified, it feels inevitable. He's not some noble warrior. He's an angry kid with a cause, a blade, and way too much energy. But the deeper he goes, the more he realizes that his ultimate goal, it's a lie. Surprise, Titans were never the real enemy. The world beyond the walls isn't full of salvation. It's full of people who already decided that he and everyone he loves deserves to die. Why? Well, because they were born Eldian. That's it. No crimes committed, no sins to atone for, just existing was enough. And for Eren, who spent his entire life believing he had to fight for freedom, that realization, it breaks something in him. And that's when Eren does what no other hero would. He stops playing defense. No more waiting for the enemy to strike first. If the world has already decided that he is a monster, then fine, he'll be the worst one they have ever seen. If they want him dead, then they'd better make peace with not existing at all. Now, this is the part where the so-called heroes start treating him like the villain. His friends beg him to stop. They insist that there has to be another way. But what way exactly? Diplomacy? Marley has already invaded Paradis before Eren even stepped foot outside the walls. They attacked his home knowing that most people inside had no clue about the world beyond. They didn't care. They never cared. So what was Eren supposed to do? Just sit back and hope the people actively trying to wipe him out suddenly had a change of heart? Trust peace talks when every attempt at diplomacy has ended in blood? Yeah, sure. Maybe if he claps hard enough, the power of friendship will save the day. And yet, the moment Eren fights back, he's the monster. Let's talk about the so-called heroes trying to stop him. Armin, Mikasa, and the rest of the Survey Corps. These are the same people who once fought to protect their own freedom, but now they're questioning whether or not they even deserve it. They're horrified by what Eren is doing, but what's their alternative? Armin, the supposed genius, doesn't really have a single real solution. Mikasa is so emotionally torn that she can barely even function. Reina, a guy who helped massacre Paradis' people, gets sympathy, but Eren, the guy who's just fighting back, is labeled a monster. The hypocrisy is just off the charts. Let's be real, Marley justified decades of war crimes in the name of justice. The Survey Corps spent years slaughtering Titans and anyone who threatened their survival, but the second that Eren does the same thing on a larger scale, suddenly it's too far. The world has always operated in a cycle of violence, and the only difference between Eren and his enemies, well, he actually understands how the game is played. And that's what makes Eren so relatable. He never lies to himself. He doesn't pretend that he's doing this for some noble cause. He knows that he's the villain in the world's eyes, and guess what? He accepts it. Unlike the characters who flip-flop on their morals when it's convenient, Eren is consistent. No excuses, no begging for forgiveness. He takes full responsibility for his actions and carries that weight to the very end. And when it's all over, what does he do? He makes makes sure that it's his people who get a future, even if it means setting himself up as the enemy that they have to defeat. He makes himself the ultimate villain, the big bad, so that his friends can be seen as heroes instead of Eldian devils. He takes all that hatred, all the fear, and absorbs it completely so that the people he loves don't have to. So yeah, Eren is a villain, but is he really worse than the people who pushed him into this corner? Or is he just the only one who had the guts to do what needed to be done? Number 2. Vinland Saga, Askeladd.
だが考えてもみろよ。もし本当にご先祖様がそんないいところに暮らしてるならよ、好き好んでこんな世界に帰ってくるわけやね。
Thorfinn should be the hero of Vinland Saga, right? I mean, he's the kid with the tragic backstory, the one who swore revenge on the man who took everything from him. Classic shonen setup, right? But somehow, the longer you watch, the more you start to realize Askeladd is the one who actually makes sense. Think about it. Thorfinn spends years chasing after one man, throwing away his childhood, his future, and any chance at a real life. He's got insane combat skills, could probably do literally anything else, and yet he still chooses to waste his entire existence just waiting for a duel. That's like being handed an all-you-can-eat buffet and deciding to starve until the waiter personally feeds you. He's stubborn, reckless, and honestly, kinda just frustrating to watch. Meanwhile, Askeladd is out here actually thinking about survival.
そりゃあだ名だ。我が母より授かりし真の名を教えてやろう。ルキウス・アルトリウス・カストゥス。
About power, about how to manipulate the world instead of just letting it manipulate him. Because Askeladd isn't just a Viking mercenary, he is a survivor. He grew up in a world that wanted him dead. Born to a slave mother and a noble father who couldn't care less if he lived or died, Askeladd learned early on that strength alone doesn't get you anywhere. You need brains, strategy, and the ability to read people like a book before they even open their mouths. He didn't have the luxury of throwing tantrums like Thorfinn. He had to adapt or die. And that is exactly why he thrives, while Thorfinn lets his emotions dictate every single move. Askeladd controls the battlefield before the fight even starts. He never wastes energy on pointless fights, he never picks a battle that he can't win, and most importantly, he knows people. He understands greed, fear, ambition, and he plays those cards flawlessly every time. And that's not just intelligence, that is a masterclass in survival. Thorfinn, on the other hand, is stuck in a loop. His entire existence revolves around just one goal, killing Askeladd. But the best part, Askeladd doesn't even care. He humors Thorfinn, gives him just enough attention to keep him around, but never actually taking him seriously, because why would he? From Askeladd's perspective, Thorfinn is just a lost kid swinging a sword at the air. He could kill him at any moment, but he doesn't, because he sees what Thorfinn can't. Revenge is empty. And that's where Askeladd becomes the far more compelling character. He isn't just fighting for himself, he has a goal beyond survival. While Thorfinn is blindly chasing his personal grudge, Askeladd is playing the long game. His hatred for the Vikings isn't just personal, it's about something bigger. He despises the world that he lives in, but unlike Thorfinn, he doesn't just scream about it, he actually has a plan. His loyalty to Wales, his dream of a different future, this is what real vision looks like. And when the time comes, Askeladd proved that he was always 10 steps ahead of everyone else. When he kills King Sweyn, sacrifices himself to ensure Canute takes the throne, it is the ultimate checkmate. This wasn't just a last-minute gamble, it wasn't some desperate act, it was the final move of a man who had already accepted his fate long before anyone else even saw it coming.
バカ。とっととやってくれよ。待たせて悪かったな。くれてやるよ。
And Thorfinn? He doesn't even know who he is without Askeladd. That's how little growth he's had compared to the man that he spent his entire life chasing. At the end of the day, Askeladd isn't just more relatable than Thorfinn, he's more human. He's not some idealistic warrior fighting for a dream or a lost soul obsessed with revenge. He's a man who sees the world for what it is, and plays the game better than anyone else. In a world where brute strength means nothing without strategy, Askeladd proves that the most dangerous weapon isn't a sword, it's knowing exactly when to use it. So yeah, Thorfinn is the hero of Vinland Saga, but if we're talking about the actual person who understands how the world works, that's Askeladd every single time. Number 3, Death Note, Light Yagami. Light Yagami was supposed to be the villain, the power-hungry maniac who took justice into his own hands and lost himself in the process. The guy who decided who lived and who died like he was some kind of divine executioner. But the more you watch Death Note, the harder it is to ignore one thing. Light's reasoning actually makes a lot of sense. Before the Death Note falls into his hands, Light is just another overachieving student suffocating under expectations. He's got the grades, the discipline, and the perfect son image, but underneath all that, he's just frustrated. He sees the world for what it is, corrupt, unfair, full of criminals who walk free because the justice system is broken. And he's not wrong. Every day the worst kinds of people slip through the cracks. Society lets them. And then, out of nowhere, fate drops a god-tier cheat code into his lap. Now, be honest, if you found a notebook that could erase the world's worst people with just a name and a face, wouldn't you at least consider using it? That's what makes Light so compelling. He doesn't start out as some egomaniacal dictator. He starts out as a guy who genuinely wants to fix the world. And for a while, it actually works. Light's first few names are hard to argue with. He takes out murderers, criminals, and people who've ruined lives without facing any consequences. And his actions have an immediate impact. Crime rates plummet, entire countries start fearing Kira, and suddenly bad people are too scared to do bad things. In a twisted way, his plan is working. But of course, nothing is ever that simple.
エルです。
この男が。
なんかイメージが。
Enter L, the hero of the story. A world-class detective with an addiction to sweets and the social skills of a feral cat. He's brilliant, sure, but he's also impossible to relate to. He doesn't care about justice. Not really. He just wants to win. To him, the Kira case isn't about protecting people, it's just a puzzle, a challenge. And that's where things get messy.
もし私が近日殺されたら、八神ライトがキラだと本部の皆さんに言っておきました。
Because L isn't fighting to make the world better. He's fighting to prove that he is smarter than Kira. Meanwhile, Light genuinely believes that he is doing the right thing, and that's what makes their battle so fascinating. Light isn't just some mustache-twirling supervillain plotting world domination. He's a guy with a vision, and that vision just so happens to involve killing anyone who gets in his way.
さよなら、レイペンバ。
And that's the problem. Light doesn't start off wrong, he just goes too far. What begins as a righteous mission to get rid of the world's criminals suddenly spirals into a desperate obsession with power. And suddenly, it's not just criminals dying, it's FBI agents, innocent people, anyone who even slightly threatens him. The line between justice and control disappears completely. And before he knows it, he's become the exact kind of tyrant he set out to destroy. But here's the thing, his downfall feels real. Power corrupts. It's what happens in the real world all the time. People start off with good intentions, but the more control they get, the more they fear losing it. Light doesn't wake up one day and just decide, oh, you know what, I think I'll be a full-blown dictator now. No, he slips into it. One justified kill turns into another, and another, until suddenly, he's not fighting for justice anymore. He's just fighting to stay on top. And honestly, that is a lot more human than whatever L is supposed to be. Because what does L really stand for? If he wins, what changes? Nothing. The world just goes back to what it was before. Criminals keep on getting away with everything, corruption thrives, and the only thing that changes is that Kira is gone. L doesn't want to fix the world, he just wants to win. That's the difference between them. L plays by the rules of a system that's already broken, but Light, he makes his own rules. And sure, by the end, he's a full-on megalomaniac, but that initial frustration, that rage at a world that lets bad guys keep on winning, that's something that almost everyone has felt at some point in their life. Light is proof that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. He's not a hero, but he's not completely wrong either. And it's what makes him one of the most relatable villains in anime. Number 4. Naruto Shippuden. Pain.
痛みを受け取れ。痛みを知れ。世界に痛みを。
Naruto Uzumaki is the classic shonen hero, the underdog who rises up, never gives up, and believes in peace and understanding. He's the guy who talks his enemies into friendship instead of just beating them into submission, which is impressive considering most of them have literally tried to kill him. And while that's inspiring in its own way, the more you watch Naruto Shippuden, the harder it is to ignore just how much sense Pain's ideology actually makes. Nagato, better known as Pain, didn't start off as some crazed villain obsessed with destruction. He was just a kid, much like Naruto, growing up in a world that didn't care if he lived or died. He and his friends were just trying to survive in the aftermath of wars that they had no part in starting. But survival wasn't exactly easy when you were born in a land constantly ravaged by bigger, stronger ninja villages, treating your home like a practice battlefield. Now, Naruto knows what it's like to suffer. He grew up hated, feared, and treated as an outcast. But here's the difference. Naruto had people. He had Iruka, Kakashi, Jiraiya, a whole lineup of mentors and friends who eventually helped him stay on the right path. The entire village might have shunned him at first, but he wasn't alone. Nagato? He had none of that. His parents were killed by Konoha ninjas, his best friend was murdered in front of him, and the one who actually tried to guide him, Jiraiya, left him, thinking he'd be fine. Spoiler, he wasn't fine. Pain's philosophy isn't just about power for the sake of power, or some typical villain speech about ruling the world. He doesn't care about ruling. What he wants is to end the cycle of suffering in a world that has no interest in peace. He understands something that Naruto, in all of his power of friendship optimism, refuses to accept. Real peace is impossible without understanding real pain. That's why he destroys the Leaf Village, not just for revenge, but as a lesson. He wants them to feel what it's like to lose everything, the same way that he did. Because in his mind, people don't understand suffering until they've lived through it themselves. And honestly, he's not wrong. Konoha played a huge part in countless wars, and yet they lived in relative peace, never once experiencing the kind of total destruction that they caused in other lands. From Nagato's perspective, all he's doing is just giving them a taste of their own medicine, and preaching about how revenge isn't the answer, that the cycle of hatred can be broken, that there's always another way, is nice and all, but here's the thing. Naruto doesn't exactly have a solution. He just says he'll find one. Okay, cool, but how exactly? Pain isn't operating on theoretical hope. He's seen what happens when people claim that they want peace. They keep on fighting anyways. He doesn't believe in some future where everyone holds hands and magically just stops killing each other just because they should. He believes in balance through fear. If every nation knows that starting a war means total destruction, then maybe, just maybe, they'll finally think twice before doing it. It's brutal, but honestly, it makes a lot more sense than Naruto's just believe approach. Of course, Naruto wins, because he's the main character, and main characters always find a way to win. He convinces Nagato to believe in his dream, to have hope again, and in the end, Pain sacrifices himself for Naruto's vision of peace.
どうしても聞いておきたいことができた。
なんだ。
エロ仙人の弟子だったお前たちがどうしてこうなっちまったのか。
But here's the irony. Naruto's dream of peace doesn't actually happen until after another war and even more suffering. Because Pain was right. People only change when they're forced to feel the pain themselves. Naruto's feel-good dream sounds great in theory, but Pain's understanding of the world is based on reality, not idealism. At the end of the day, Pain wasn't some evil monster. He was a broken man who saw the world for what it was and tried to create a solution that actually worked. It may not have been the answer people wanted to hear, but it was a lot more honest than Naruto's blind optimism. Number 5. Jujutsu Kaisen Geto Suguru.
あの日から自分に言い聞かせている。私が見たものは何も珍しくない。周知の醜悪。
Gojo Satoru is the strongest sorcerer alive. He's untouchable, undefeated, and completely disconnected from the struggles of ordinary people. He walks through life like a man who's never had a bad day, dodging attacks with a smirk, throwing out cocky one-liners, and flexing his god-tier abilities like it's just another Tuesday. The deeper you get into Jujutsu Kaisen, the more Suguru Geto's ideology starts to feel surprisingly justified. Geto wasn't born a villain like any other on this list. In fact, he was just once like Gojo, young, powerful, and fighting for the good of humanity. But unlike Gojo, Geto was never detached from the suffering around him.
君は五条悟だから最強なのか、最強だから五条悟なのか。何が言いてんだよ。
He didn't just exercise curses and move on. He saw the aftermath. He saw innocent sorcerers die while protecting ungrateful civilians, watched as the weak relied on the strong while treating them like monsters in return. And at that point, he had to ask himself, what's the point? Gojo never stopped to think about that. He didn't actually have to. He was just too powerful to even feel real consequences. His strength was so overwhelming that he never had to struggle, never had to question whether the system that they were fighting for was even worth protecting. But Geto? He saw the cracks. No matter how many curses they exorcised, the real problem wasn't the curses, it was the people. And that's why Geto broke. He didn't wake up one day and just decide, you know what, I think I'll be a villain now. He was pushed into it, and he watched his best friend joke around while he was left dealing with the ugly reality of the sorcerer world. He carried the weight of every innocent life lost, every failure, and every pointless sacrifice made in the name of protecting people who didn't even appreciate it. And eventually, he realized something horrible. Sorcerers are forced to protect the very people who created the curses in the first place. So, he made a choice. If the weak were the root of the problem, then the only logical solution was to remove them from the equation. No more innocent civilians creating curses. No more pointless deaths for people who treat sorcerers like disposable tools. Just sorcerers ruling over their own world, free from the burden of protecting the powerless. And here's the thing, his reasoning isn't really wrong. It's brutal, sure, but it makes sense. The Jujutsu world is broken. Sorcerers are treated like expendable soldiers, and the higher-ups are corrupt beyond saving. And the very people they're protecting don't even seem to understand the sacrifices being made for them. Geto saw the reality of the system and said, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. Meanwhile, Gojo, he never even tried to change the system. He had the power to shake everything and to force real change, but instead, he just vibed his way through life, occasionally helping out whenever he felt like it. And that's what makes Geto the more relatable one. He isn't invincible, he isn't some untouchable god, he actually feels the weight of the world's problems. And when he decides to act, it's not about power, it's because he truly believes that there's no other way. Gojo gets to joke around and act like the world's strongest because he never had to make that kind of choice. Geto did. And that's what makes him so much more human. So, what's your take on this? Were these villains truly wrong? Or were they the only ones willing to do what the heroes couldn't? Let me know in the comments below if there's anyone that you think could have joined the list. And if you enjoyed this breakdown and want to see some more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.